one by giving you guys breaking news of Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones pay-per-view sales. They projected to do between 1.1 to 1.5 million, which those are great numbers, possibly the biggest numbers this year. I think the UFC, Masvidal versus Usman, that did 1.3 million. Conor McGregor versus Cowboy did 1 million. And then Habib did 700K. So if Mike Tyson does 1.5 million, like the pay-per-view is projected to do, then he definitely topped any sport this year, which those are great numbers. However, they did not live up to the hype of the pre-sales, because supposedly the pre-sales, like I informed you guys, the pre-sales were supposedly the biggest numbers of the decade, the biggest pre-sales of the decade. So a lot of people felt like maybe this gonna top Floyd Mayweather versus Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor, which I told you guys, I don't see that being possible because it's still an exhibition. Even Mike Tyson versus Holyfield, Mike Tyson versus Lennox Lewis, it did like 1.8, 2 million pay-per-view buys. So it's a stretch for Mike Tyson today to top Floyd Mayweather versus Pacquiao that did 5.7 million on pay-per-view. Mike Tyson have to go up against like a current heavyweight to do them type of numbers. Even a Holyfield trilogy will do great, but it's very hard to top 5.7 million on pay-per-view. But nevertheless, it was a tremendous success to say the least. For the people that don't know, Floyd Mayweather holds the 4 highest pay-per-view sales of all time. Floyd Mayweather versus Pacquiao did 5.7 million on pay-per-view. Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor did 5.1 million on pay-per-view. Oscar versus Floyd Mayweather did 2.7 million. And Floyd Mayweather versus Canelo did 2.2 million. So Floyd Mayweather holds the record for the top 3 in any sport. And it's going to be a long time to see someone top these numbers. But nevertheless, Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones was a tremendous success. I mean, for 2 50-year-old fighters fighting each other, doing 1.5 million, that's shocking. That's mind-boggling. But obviously, the promotion that they gotten for that fight was extraordinary, with Mike Tyson just hitting the pad, and that did 2.5 billion impression alone. A 15-second video did that. That's the type of promotion money can't buy. In my humble opinion, obviously, Errol Spence versus Danny Garcia is taking place this week. I think it would have been wise if they did this fight prior to the Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones. I'll be honest with you guys. I didn't like the idea of Errol Spence versus Danny Garcia being pushed back after Mike Tyson's versus Roy Jones, because that kind of overshadowed the Errol Spence fight. This fight was so hyped up. It's so anticipated. But the week before Errol Spence is about to fight, we got Mike Tyson freaking coming back. Think about it. I always tell people, you do not do pay-per-view back-to-back. That's an absolute no. We already in a pandemic, right? So if we in a pandemic and then Mike Tyson fights, so majority of the 1.5 million people that bought the pay-per-view have to be hardcore boxing fans, right? I'm one of them. So if I spend $50 purchasing Mike Tyson fight, and then the week right after that, I got to pay $80 to watch Errol Spence fight. I mean, I might have to, but not everybody is willing to do that. So one pay-per-view a month, I felt like, yeah, that could be affordable to certain fan bases. You might not get every single fan base to purchase the pay-per-view, but one pay-per-view a month is doable. But to have pay-per-views back-to-back, especially a successful pay-per-view like Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones, and then to have Errol Spence right after, nearly double the cost, I think that wasn't a wise decision by decision makers, because they had the right date. November, I think it was 23rd. That was the right date. A week right before the Mike Tyson fight. So the people that purchased the Errol Spence fight, they could think about purchasing the Mike Tyson fight. However, now, all the people that purchased the Mike Tyson fight, are they willing to spend more money for the Errol Spence fight? It's worth it. It's definitely going to be a fight, not an exhibition. But at the end of the day, I just don't think it was wise. I know they did it for the attendance. However, I don't know how hard would it have been for them to force the attendance and try to get things done on that same date they had prior. One way they could have easily solved the issue I brought up if they promoted Errol Spence versus Danny Garcia during Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones. That would have been a hell of an idea to have Errol Spence versus Danny Garcia. Errol Spence come back after surviving in a miracle way right before Mike Tyson fights John Jones. Right after the kid, Logan Jack or something, right after his knockout. That would have been a brilliant idea. That's what they did to Canelo Alvarez when he fought Kirkland. Remember, he got promoted on Floyd Mayweather versus Pacquiao card. That's why he did tremendous numbers on HBO the week after. And that fight wasn't on pay-per-view. So the fact that Errol Spence fight on pay-per-view, I think it would have been worth it to spend a couple dollars on an ad in order to push for the Errol Spence fight right after the Mike Tyson fight. But it is what it is. I think Errol Spence would still do $300K. But without the Mike Tyson being the obstacle in the way, I think he could have did $500, $600K. But right now, I don't think people got that moolah to purchase the fight, so they're going to have to resort to doing different things. So I just think it's a wise in the near future for them to be more calculated when it comes to placing pay-per-views back-to-back, especially right after Mike Tyson. That overshadows a lot of different things. When you're doing 2.5 billion impressions, yeah, you overshadowing everybody. You know what I'm saying? It ain't just the sport of boxing. You're overshadowing all the sports. You know what I'm saying?
Hold it. You're not that pretty. I'm a bad man. Wait. I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
I bear witness, there's only one God, Allah, and Muhammad is his final messenger. That's what I said, Larry, on the Bungle fight. Thanking you.
They call me the problem, but you could call me the can man, because anybody can get it. Africans, Americans, Dominicans, Mexicans, anybody can get it.